Caloroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Good joke from Jimmy Fallon. Lego just announced a new 5,000-piece Lord of the Rings Fortress set that costs $460. Anyway, if you're looking for a line to end a first date, that ought to do it. Seth Meyers said, the makers of Oreos unveiled new packaging inspired by the Star Wars franchise. The way it works, the first 3 Oreos are pretty good, the next 3 are pretty bad, and the rest you eat just because you ate the first 6. Love it. Quick housekeeping I talked about yesterday with the festivals kind of over on Memorial Day heading. If you've been addicted to 20-minute episodes, they're going to shrink back down to the 11, 12-minute range for a little bit. If you didn't listen this weekend, though, they were both pretty robust. There was this Chappelle story on Saturday and a Tim Dillon story on Sunday that just got a little longer than I thought, but those were pretty good episodes. Jimmy Fallon has started a podcast. It is a podcast version of The Tonight Show. It features Fallon's monologues, sketches, and games, and extended versions of his interviews from the previous night's episodes. You know, I never really listened to the late night podcast, and I like late night as a concept. I mean, part of it is there's only so many hours in the day. I can barely listen to my own podcast someday because I have to make other podcasts. You know what I'm saying? But the summer's coming. I'll be sitting outside a lot more, half asleep, just listening to 6-7 hours of podcast while I sit under the umbrella. I've rescinded my Jimmy Buffett lifestyle. I had a couple skin scares. I've got a couple spots that are pre-cancerous, so nothing too worrisome just yet. But, it's the universe telling me, maybe don't sit out in the sun for 9-10 hours a day, which, I did for half a century. I do believe I've been pretty good with lotion, aside from my, reckless behavior of sitting in the sun. But, I think a lot of the damage was done in the 70s when we used to put on suntan oil. And remember, you'd go to the beach, and if your friend had something with a 2 on it, like you're putting on 2 sunscreen, and then the 4s came out. And then I remember when 8 came out, it was like 8. And then when 15 came out, it was like 15. Same thing on 30. Keep doing the bit. It's not a bit, but if you're of a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, we used to just go out and bake. Remember people would sit with the tinfoil reflectors to get more sun on them? Remember when you thought it was like normal behavior, like you'd get that like early summer burn, and then it would like crust off, and then the second skin would tan properly. So I think a lot of my problems happened in 1978. I digress. Jimmy Fallon said, I'm excited to announce that I'm officially the last person on earth to start a podcast. Colbert's got one. It's the Late Show Pod Show, an audio cut down of his show with some extras. There's The Daily Show, of course. Jon Stewart has his new separate one from The Daily Show. I have to remember to add that to my podcast queue. Just check that out. Hopefully it's better than the Apple one. HBO's been putting out full episodes of Real Time with Bill Maher's podcast since 2015. I had no idea. Jimmy Kimmel does not offer his show as a podcast. Sticking with late night for a second, John Mulaney is going to throw his, what was that called? Everybody's in L.A.? They were planning to submit the show into the scripted variety category, where it would have competed against Saturday Night Live and John Oliver. Oliver's going to win because SNL had. SNL season was so uninteresting, I haven't watched the last 5 episodes. They're all sitting on the DVR, but I'm just like, I just don't care. However, Variety has learned that Netflix and the creative team feels the show is better suited for the talk series category, and it will compete against Kimmel, Colbert, Seth Meyers, and Jimmy Fallon. Last year, 19 series were entered for Talk Series, which invited 5 nominees. Variety believes there are currently 13 with their hat in the ring, including Kimmel, Colbert, and Fallon. Last year, Scripted Variety had 12 submissions. Variety right now is only tracking 5. John Oliver, SNL. Netflix's The Magic Prank Show with Justin Willman. What? The what? That's a thing that happened. Did anyone see this? CBS's After Midnight and the now canceled Painting with John from HBO/Max. What was that? I feel like I'm dreaming. I just read 5 shows, 2 of which I've never heard of. As I explained recently, I don't know everything about comedy, but like I do this every day. I do at least 5 days a week, go on Google and type in words like comedy and comedian, and I read articles. I don't just like sit here and go, oh, let me make up 20 minutes of content. I do some research. What was Painting with John? HBO has a FAQs website. Who is John Lurie? I am John Lurie. Thank you for asking. Who else appears in Painting with John? Nesrin Wolf as Scooch the Oocher, Anne Mary James, Leroy Jacob, and Rudolph the man who sleeps in the mango tree. I'm asleep, right? Like, I'm just dreaming. There's no such show as called Painting with John that's nominated for an Emmy, right? What is this? Part meditative tutorial, part fireside chant, musician John Lurie shares his philosophical thoughts while honing his watercolor techniques. And there's 3 seasons of it? I'm sorry, guys. Tell me in the Facebook group. Did I just Mandela effect? Am I on now Earth 2? Because on my Earth, we didn't have Painting with John. That's not a thing. And what's this Netflix prank show with Justin Willman? I'm convinced the alarm clock's going to go off any second now. And I'm going to be like, oh, I had the craziest dream. I was hosting the podcast and I was talking about all these shows that I didn't remember existed. Right, the Magic Prank Show with Justin Willman, 2024, 6 episodes. In this irreverent comedy series, a magician stages elaborate pranks on unsuspecting targets. See, this I'll believe exists. The other one on Max for 3 years, I don't think that exists. Per nomination procedures, when categories have fewer than 7 entrees. Why did I say entrees? It's not food. Entries. Leave it in. Why did I say entrees? The submissions will be screened by the appropriate peer group for a nomination. Any entry, I almost said entree again, any entree that receives 9/10 approval will receive a nomination. Think of it as a simple up or down vote, and then consider how difficult it can be to score 90% approval in everything. The rules further state, if none of the nominations receives 90% approval, the nomination with the highest approval receives the Emmy. The Dallas Cowboys put together a video for their schedule release. Apparently, schedule releases are a big deal now, and the teams are all trying to one-up each other. Well, the Cowboys went with Shane Gillis, Sam Morill, and Burt Kreischer, and a quick appearance by Joe Rogan. The video stars Jerry Jones, Post Malone, Dak Prescott, Michael Irvin, and Tim the Tat Man. They represent the Dallas Cowboys in what appears to be a team supergroup. They prank call their opponents' fans via FaceTime. Shane Gillis represented the Eagles, who looked to be answering a call during a cold plunge featuring a brief appearance from his friend Joe Rogan, cheering on Go Birds. Sam Morill represented the New York Giants, who appeared to be utterly and comically annoyed to be hearing from the team, with a processed smirk saying, I don't like this at all. Burt Kreischer represented the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He appeared joyfully surprised and answered laughing, saying, am I getting drafted? A lot of press for Nikki Glaser lately, but no buzz on that HBO special, no buzz at all. She was on the Today Show with Hoda and Jenna. It's like kind of the Today Show, but not really. It has the Today logo, but it's kind of Today Hour 15 or whatever it is. I don't know. I have nothing against them. I hate daytime TV. Anytime you go to the dentist or Jiffy Lube or any of those, they always have daytime TV on, usually ABC. You usually get subjected to, what's her face? Kelly Ripa, and then you have to sit through The View. You either get that, or sometimes the dentist's office, they'll have on the local News 12 news channel. That's less annoying, except if you sit there for half an hour and you've heard the weather report 5 times, it's just I digress. Nikki Glaser told the Today Show, folks, I didn't freeze my eggs. She says if she feels the pull to have children one day, she'll consider adoption. She noted the kids are hard work. She wants to focus on her career. But the real reason, she said, is I'm scared to love something that much. She said something. I would have said someone, which is a callback to a Robert Schimmel joke, which I'll clean up slightly. But he does the pause. I'll try and recreate it from memory. So he says, you ever just need to bang something? Someone? So yes, my 2 cents, your child is someone, not something. I digress again. Jenna said, that's why I think your comedy's so amazing, because at the center of it are real conversations women are having. I have friends that have decided not to have kids, and there's still some shame there. Nikki said, you see your friends wanting it so badly, genuinely wanting it, and you feel like, what's wrong with me that I don't want it? You feel kind of left out. That's what I'm struggling with more than just, well, should I do it? Because I'm kind of sure I don't want it, but I'm like, why do I want this thing that everyone seems to want? I feel like I can always adopt. Hoda jumped in and said, by the way, I'd like you to know adoption rocks. Hoda has 2 adopted daughters, Haley, 7, and Hope, 5. Glaser says, I have some time and I really don't care if the baby looks like me. It's not really interesting to me. John, you've told us twice in a row that the episodes were going to stop being 20 minutes long and they were going to get shorter because there were no festivals and we're all checking our watch here and these things are getting long again. I know. There's a lot going on. Salon wrote about cancel culture, Bill Maher, and Bill Burr. Salon writes, remember when Gilbert Gottfried was fired from his Affleck deal for making tasteless jokes about the earthquake and tsunami that devastated Japan? That was 2011, when the great evil was called outrage culture, largely generated by jokes like that, along with rape and sexual violence. The reason I called out Bill Burr's observation, Bill was on Mars recently talking about cancel culture, etc., is because we don't hear from or about the people whose careers have actually been canceled. And this is, let me drop all the snark and goof. Let me get a really flat read here because I think this is actually a really great point and important. Like the 5 women who came forward in 2017 to detail Louis C.K.'s misconduct. One quit comedy altogether. Others, like Rebecca Corey, keep trying to move forward in a career they've been building long before they crossed CK's path. Corey, who has more than 3 decades of experience as a performer in stand-up, wrote a 2018 Vulture essay describing the difficulties she encountered before her name became habitually linked with CK's, and spoke to Variety in 2022 after CK won that Grammy. She told Variety, "Why am I constantly being asked to speak on cancel culture? The joke that is the Me Too movement and CK every time he's in the news cycle. I don't care what that guy does, and of course cancel culture is real. I'm living proof. The moment I was sexually harassed at my job, I was canceled. That's how it works, kids. So let's talk about what I'm doing and when my Netflix special is happening. There are people who've been doing stand-up for 5 minutes with comedy specials and other with multiple specials who suck. So when's mine? I'm ready when you are," Ted Sarandos, Netflix CEO. Yeah, I think the point's getting lost in the weeds there. Should her career have been canceled? No, of course not. Separate from that, whether you ever met Louis C.K. or not everyone gets a Netflix special. People who've been doing stand-up for 5 minutes, I'll translate that to be, I don't know, say like Matt Rife, but Netflix is a business and they're putting up there who they think is popular. And Robbie Praw has been calling some pretty good shots. It's really hard right now to say Netflix has been giving specials to people who suck. Now, they air comedy shows. This is back to the whole specials versus hours thing. Things show up on Netflix that, have a box. It's a picture of a comedian and it's a box, and the comedian is calling it a special, but I would call it an hour. We've discussed that on previous podcasts. So are there comedy programs on Netflix? Sure. Film one yourself and offer it to Netflix. They might say yes if the price is right. In terms of the specials, and I think we just saw what the Netflix Comedy Festival was, I think you'd be hard pressed to look at anybody at the Netflix Comedy Festival and be like, that person's not in the top echelon of comedy. Back to Salon, Ellen DeGeneres is sharpening her material for her Netflix special. Let me jump back in. I mean, it's not crazy that Ellen has a Netflix special. Many things can be true at once. Ellen can be funny. Ellen apparently can be jerky to coworkers. Both can be true. Rolling Stone took in her recent set at West Hollywood's Largo at the Coronet Theater and characterized her means of addressing her partner show's downfall as processing, including copying to being an immature boss who didn't know how to be a boss. During a post-show conversation, one woman asked Ellen, "Do you think you'll seek revenge for those who have wronged you?" This was met by what the reporters described as a loud round of applause and cheers from every corner of the room. That's your evidence of what famous people crying over supposed cancel culture has yielded, not justice or a new sense of fairness, but misdirected grievance aimed towards less powerful people, ruining everyone else's good time by exposing our favorite stars' misdeeds. Yeah, I call it showbiz adjacent for many years now, especially the years at Sirius. And it's an ugly business. And I do my job, you do your job. If you go back to your hotel room and do lines and lines of cocaine, and I go back to my room and watch Star Trek, you do you, I do me. Nobody should be harassed. Nobody should be bullied. But does crappy stuff go on in show business? Yeah. And I don't know how you're going to clean that up or whatever. I don't know. Maybe as technology changes and people can reach audiences without going through the system, there'll be more decent people. But for every decent person, there's going to be somebody who asks out a 17-year-old. So I don't know. Very complicated. And that's your comedy news for today. Load a comment at the end there, John? Yeah. See you tomorrow.